Delicious dinner in Montpelier, and now it's nighttime. We're going back to Nashua. Winds are about 15 knots out of the northeast. It is dark as the deepest night out there.
Dark o'clock.
Right. Overcast clouds up high, so the weather's not an issue, but it's blocking out all the stars. The mountains are unlit, so obstacle departure procedure may be in order.
All right.
It's all you.
Let's get set for it. Rather than charting my own obstacle clearance, I intend to fly the runway 5 ODP, at least initially, until I determine that it's clear to do something else. But in absence of coming up with an alternative plan, I'm just going to stick with the ODP, and I know that's going to keep me in good shape. So, looking at that for Montpelier, off of runway 5, we're going to climb on essentially runway heading, the 048 heading, to 2,100. That's nearly 1,000 feet AGL. Then it's a climbing left turn up to 3,900 feet, direct the Montpelier VOR, before we proceed on course. So, runway heading till 1,000 AGL, left turn, heading towards Montpelier VOR. Now, as it turns out, Montpelier VOR, this is not a large inconvenience because Montpelier VOR is essentially on course for us anyway. We'd be heading that way as it turns out. If we were not going to be heading to Montpelier, let's say, for example, we were heading east-northeast, something like that, then it's worth mentioning that we don't actually have to make it all the way to the Montpelier VOR. As long as we get to 3,500, then we can proceed on course. Okay. So I'm happy with that.
And for clarity's sake, let's proceed on course, climbing to whatever altitude is safe, not necessarily that 3,500 and then barrel off on course, because there is some terrain. Yes. Yeah, there is some terrain higher than that.
That's right. I'm going to put 048 in my heading bug as a reminder. Now, for practice purposes, I'm not going to put the entire route into the GPS because I really just want to practice this ODP. So I want to get myself as far as Montpelier. And so what I'll do is look up the nearest VOR on the GPS. So let's go to the big knob, drag it over here to nearest, and we'll use the small knob to cycle to the VOR page. There it is, and there's Montpelier. So I'll get myself a cursor. And we'll say, well, it's 110.8. So what I can do is have it tune that, or just go direct there. Let's just do the direct there. And we can reactivate direct to it shortly afterwards. Okay, desired track for that is 161. And I'm happy with that. So we've got a magenta line when we're ready. I'm also going to be backing this up on the iPad with some synthetic vision as well. We'll get into that once we're off the ground. All right, lights are all set. We have plenty of runway here. This will be a 0 flap takeoff, straight out to 1,000 feet, and then a left turn, 048 on course. Correction, left turn from the runway heading, left turn direct Montpelier at that time. All right, brake release. And off we go. Let's actually check the RPM here. Yep, static RPM.
I've burned that into your brain now.
Never again.
Excellent.
Okay, I've got airspeed. The engine gauges are in the green. I did that in reverse order. There's, oh my goodness, we're well behind on the process there. We're not on a Lancer. We're not in Lancer. And off we go, let's climb. We should be climbing significantly more steeply than that.
That's a whole lot of eternity out there.
Yep. Not much to see. Okay, looking for 74 knots, correct, on the VY?
Correct. But again, on the ODP, we're climbing over 1,000 feet per minute here. So
well in excess of the required climb rate.
Well in excess of the required climb rate. So a little bit of cruise climb is perfectly acceptable.
We could.
You're comfortable with it.
However, because we're going exactly the opposite direction of where we need to be heading, there is little advantage to doing the cruise climb, in my mind, other than cooling. I'm trying to get to that 2,100 feet as quickly as possible. Now we turn on course. Now I want to transition to that cruise climb.
Makes sense to me.
Okay, and we're in the left turn, direct Montpelier. Okay, engine's climbing well. Still got some ground references here. I'm largely on the gauges at this point. Basically doing standard rate turns over here. Nothing heroic on the bank angles, just keep the climb going. All right, through 3,000 feet, leaning a little bit there. And again, direct Montpelier, here we come. Okay. Now looking at the synthetic vision, just verifying that there's really nothing out there immediately ahead of us. We've got good terrain clearance. There's some mountains off to our left, which might be a concern. But by the time we get there with this climb rate, really not going to be a factor. So the ODP has done its job. We had to put very little thought into it. Now we're on course to Montpelier with no significant issues. So I'd be very happy to fly that in real life now. No concerns.
Excellent.
That really was, honestly, a lot faster than doing a huge evaluation of the terrain and plotting an egress route. The ODP really didn't slow us down a whole lot.
It's beautifully simple in this case. I mean, sometimes obviously they get really complicated, but it's just one of those tools. Pull from the instrument book as a VFR pilot. Keep yourself safe.
Right, I agree.